Good afternoon. My name is Jenny Lesser. I'm the Business Development Manager here at United Training. Welcome to today's webinar, Transitioning to Microsoft Teams from Skype for Business, presented by Ryan with Red Level. We are using the GoToWebinar platform for today's session, and we will share a copy of this recording with you. We do encourage participation throughout the webinar, so please use that questions option in your GoToWebinar dashboard. United Training is so excited to present this webinar today, so I will now hand it over to you, Ryan.
Hey, thanks so much. Appreciate the intro. Okay. Well, hey, everybody. Today, I'm going to be walking you guys through the transition from Skype to Business to Microsoft Teams. Okay. So let's get rolling. All right. So the first thing I have for you guys is a poll. All right. So Skype for Business is coming to an end of life in the end of July. It's 5 months. Five months. So if you're still in Skype for Business, you are running out of runway. So I have a poll. I'm curious to know where you fit within that framework. Okay. And so, because I really want to spend my time talking about where you guys sit. Okay. So there's technical components. Okay. You're getting your requirements in place. You're working on hybrid Azure AD. There's the technical side of things. There is a governance side of things. Okay. Where you've hey, what are we going to use Teams for? Just kind of figuring that out. There's also what I call the change management. Like this is what, hey, we're going to be, we got to do the training or roll out, that kind of stuff. And or you're ready to go, you're ready to enable it. And I'll also talk about some of the pandemic scenarios where, dude, we enabled it, we just threw it out there, and we're now kind of reeling back in from that. So take a second. I'd love to hear back from you, and then that'll kind of give me some guidance about what's important to you, and we'll cover that. We'll give you about 10 more seconds. All right, let's see if can we see the result of the poll?
So right now we have 65% of our poll takers are enabled for users, ready to go. 18% are working on communication and training. 11% are defining governance, and 6% are getting requirements in place.
All right. Hey, looks like you guys are, the majority of you are in you're heading into the good areas here. All right, so I'll touch on all 4 components, domains, and it sounds like it'll kind of fit most folks that are there. Okay, so great, let's get moving. So here we go next. Let's advance the slides. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, I'm Ryan. Okay, Red Level consultant, one-time SharePoint guy, and Microsoft Teams platform. I'm the lead technician when it comes to collaborations platform here for Red Level. So SharePoint, Teams, Skype, OneDrive, all those things kind of fall into my wheelhouse. And my background is actually, I used to be an instructor for New Horizons United Training. Once upon a time, years and many, many moons ago, I was a technician for Chrysler. We did one of the largest SharePoint implementation on-premise farms in the world, and led a bunch of governance and adoption and development team there. And then with Red Level, formerly CDH for the last, I don't know, 6 years or so. Okay, so that's me. I live locally here in the Michigan area, and I got married, got 4 kids, 4 teenagers. You'll hear about them as I tell some stories along the way. And I am probably way obsessed with soccer, more than a techie guy like myself should be, but I am. So that's me. All right, guys, so here we go. All right, so the big news is obviously on the 31st, hey, Skype for Business is sailing off in the sunset. Now, they're not just like stopping support, they're turning it off. The lights go out, Skype for Business Online is dead. However, if you have Skype on premise, that could live on for as long as you have. And so that's pretty interesting. Okay, so you could keep it going alive if you need to. So Microsoft has been kind of pounding this drum for quite a long time. And if you haven't heard of Teams, you're not in the technology space. All right. So most likely you have heard of Teams. You've looked at it. You've looked at it in one way or another. So this webinar I thought was very interesting, that I'm not introducing people to the technology, but more along what are the finer points of having it implemented. So that's kind of my approach to this. So some of the big motivations here, okay, Skype has a suite of features: chat, manage contacts, host meetings. Great. So what does Teams bring to the table? More. Okay? It brings more things. And that's kind of where we get ourselves into trouble. And Skype isn't just this one-to-one, hey, it is exactly the same thing, just a better, faster technology, more reliable. It changes, it's bringing change to our organizations like I've never seen, okay, over the last 20 years. And it's kind of like almost like a revolution, almost like when users started getting desktop PCs and went to client servers. All right, it's kind of really kind of a big deal. So if you're looking for like if you're at the very beginning of the process, Microsoft's got some amazing documentation about the journey of like how to do this, okay? And they lay it out in about a 32-step different type of approach, okay? So, and this graphic is beautiful, okay? I didn't build it, but it's from Microsoft's documentation. So you're trying to go from Skype to get to Teams only. You notice in the middle there, okay? So if I kind of point out the middle here, okay, laser pointer, that's what I want. Okay, this is this coexistence. You have an opportunity, depending on the scale of your Skype implementation, to have these things kind of coexist, right? And as then one wanes down, and then Teams kind of continues on, right? Now, I'm not going to be naive to think that could you go not use Teams? Sure, you could use Slack, you could use some of these other third-party tools. So I'm not naive enough to think that. But Microsoft's plan is like they want you to stay within the family. So, hey, we think your workloads would transition really nicely to Teams. Fantastic. So these are pretty traditional, what I call ITIL, Microsoft kind of traditional project planning kind of steps. So envision, make sure you know what it is, do a pilot, deploy Teams, grow your user adoption, plan, upgrade to Teams only. This is very, very nice, kind of words that they use, right? And in my research, I found, hey, Microsoft's got this great 32-step. Technically, here's what you do: do this, do this, do this, run the script, do this thing, do that thing. So some of you guys are at the very beginning of this process. This is where you want to start, right? And if you're especially under the gun, like 5 months doesn't feel like a lot of time, that's the best place to start. Okay, and so the documentation, I got that link right there. It gives you the 32 different elements. So for me, how does it fit? So what is it as a consultant? We deal with customers all the time, making these kinds of upgrades. And so what kind of value do we offer? Okay, if the steps are just out there. So it's a good question. So here's what it is. Here's how I see it. All right. So you have to, number one, get your technical requirements in place. Okay. Number two, and notice how I have this labeled here, pandemic. This is what happened with a lot of organizations. They're like, Ryan, we're going. I know we were going to think about Teams and going to the cloud, but we are now pandemic hit. It's over. We're doing this. So they got their technical requirements in place, which means they have they've enabled cloud enabled like their Azure Active Directory. They have Exchange in a hybrid mode. They've got all their technical requirements in place. They go, all right, turn it on, give it to the users, off it goes. Right, but then now they're in this little more of a steady state. Okay, people are using it for chat, meetings, what I call very classic Skype styled type of utilization. But now they need to start wrapping some governance around it. Okay, so for example, I had a client that they did this with, and they go, Ryan, we have like all these really crazy teams. And I go, really? That's pretty normal to have teams named. If you've allowed the users to create teams, they all have, they can have all kinds of names they want. They go, well, Ryan, but they're names of meetings. I'm like, what do you mean they're names of meetings? Well, so the name it says meeting with so and so, and what the users were doing is they're creating a whole new team for just having a meeting with one person, one external user, and then they would create another team for a meeting with somebody else, and they didn't know that they could use it for just meetings, right? Without having to create whole big team things. And we kind of laughed, had a good chuckle about it. I was like, okay, you guys need some governance, and you need some training. You need change management. People need to know, like, well, how does this change things for me, right? Do I keep doing the same thing I've done, or is this a different set of tools, right? So do I, imagine the days when we users transition from, horse and buggy to a car. They go, hey, to get this thing go, do I just snap the reins? Okay, is it the same thing or is it different? It's different. So you have to do that same kind of approach. So I'm going to walk through these 4 kind of approaches, okay? And the more interesting things that I find where organizations struggle with are the green box and the blue box. because they deal with people. And anything with people is always, it's not simple, it's not complicated, it's complex in its nature because people are changing. You just never know what you're going to find. So, hey, let's get rolling. Now, if you're looking at the appropriate approach, this is a little better. If you had the time to do it from a greenfield, technical requirements, define your governance, do your change management plan, communication training is what we do, and then we release. Okay, all right, so that's the appropriate approach. Pandemic-wise, we did that. This is reality. Okay, so step is the requirements. Okay, so me and my family, we like to ski. So there's a couple of things you need requirement in order to ski. You got to have the right gear. Okay, I went on a trip with my son in northern Michigan. We get to the slope, we get there, and he's like, "Dad, forgot my gloves." Like, okay, you're going to need that stuff. Otherwise, you can't even participate. So what are the needed requirements to participate and just have Teams? Okay, Microsoft's got tons of documentation on this. This kind of falls into that very mechanical 32-step stuff. Okay, Azure Active Directory, your identity has got to be synced up to the cloud, Exchange Online, have some kind of sync. Okay, if we were in a pandemic and people were working in facilities, you want to make sure you have network bandwidth. Okay, enabled. There's certain ports and firewalls you could do to allow the traffic that's within Teams and the media to have prioritization over other types of traffic that's going on. Okay, have your domains verified. So you're not just using an on Microsoft.com domain. You might have a custom domain like Red Level Group. Okay, UnitedTraining.com is the suffix of your email. All right, and then also have some kind of plan because there's all these supporting technologies, kind of a cast of characters that go with Teams. SharePoint and OneDrive in groups, and then also kind of defining, hey, what are you doing for your phone system? So our organization, Red Level, our consulting firm, once upon a time used Skype as our phone. Okay, and we had made a transition, and now we use Teams as our soft phone client. So all my business phone calls, they come through my PC. All right, so that's pretty cool. So we're kind of figuring out, hey, what are these technical requirements? And I got a whole bunch of links here, and this presentation will be available to you guys. There's a success kit. You can look at the prerequisites, got a whole tool for network bandwidth, and then hybrid identities. So pretty awesome. That's your first step. Hey, you got to get through your technical requirements. All right, the next you got to decide is, okay, how are you going to handle, okay, the users have two different parents now. And I kind of think of it, it's like almost like like divorced parents dealing with custody of children. Okay, are you going to live in the same house? Are they going to live in separate houses? Okay, and it has this little bit of a flavor to that. And here's what I mean by that. One of the things you can have is what's called island mode. Island mode means that Skype communication and Skype content can only work within the Skype client. Teams information only works inside the Teams client. So it's very isolated. Kids, they only go with one parent, the other parent, separate houses. Okay, you could then also say, well, we're going to kind of mix it up, right? So we have Skype is used, you could use either one, okay, and we can kind of now have Skype messages cross over into Teams, and it kind of has this back and forth kind of a thing. That's kind of cool. I don't like that as much, but I like much more like kind of keeping the workloads very straight. So let me give you a graphic to help illustrate. So here you can see Skype on the top here has got, hey, calling meetings. Teams has got all those components, okay? And there's a little bit of overlapping of the capabilities. Fantastic, but then this is where we go, where we have, okay, well, we'll start phasing out. So calling and chat and calling is in Skype, but we are now gonna enable the meetings. We want all the meetings to go through Teams. And eventually we're gonna get to a Teams only scenario. So this is what is part of your planning, is like thinking about, well, how big is our Skype implementation? And can we just switch overnight, or do we gotta kind of like warm people to this? And what does that look like? And so Microsoft's got tons of documentation on some of those different approaches. Okay, great. So the next piece of this puzzle, okay, once you decide, hey, how are they gonna interact with each other, is, okay, let's now enable Teams. What do I gotta do to get this thing out for people? Well, number one, they're gonna need the client application. The client application, okay, now Teams is very dynamic. There's 3 different ways to get to it. You can have the mobile app, okay? You can have a desktop client, and there's also a web client that goes along with it, okay? So users can download it right from when they get messages. But then you can also use configuration manager group policy and push on MSI so that you can have it installed overnight. Look, this Teams thing, funny thing, just showed up on my computer today. Man, these guys are so smart, right? So you have that traditional kind of push out of an application. And so, hey, when you're looking at enable teams, number one, how are you going to get the client? Number two is you got to deal with the licensing, okay? So right inside your admin center, you can go right into the licensing area and you can enable SharePoint Online because you have to have a license for that. If you want the files capability of SharePoint, okay, Microsoft 365 group creation, and then you can enable the team license, okay? And this can be done through PowerShell in bulk or to be done on an individual basis too. Okay, all right, those are kind of my first two items. Technical requirements, not crazy. Enabling of teams, pretty standard, what I call IT workloads. Push it out, give it to the users. Okay, if you've been in the IT space or in the kind of the IT pro space, you're like, okay, got it. Bam, we've seen this before. Let's do it. Okay, but now we get into the weirdness. Okay, the weirdness is governance. Okay, because we all know that Teams is going to be used for chat, meetings, and voice. Boom. It is not up for debate. It is a replacement of Skype. Those capabilities are going to go there. But the question I have for you is, okay, are you going to use it for other things beyond that? And this is where every organization has to come up with their own plan and think of it like a recipe of like, what will I use this thing for, right? And that's what's kind of fun for me is I never know what the organization, how they're going to adjust the recipe to make these cookies. All right. So what are your choices? Here's what we've seen. Okay. Every organization has got to have a space for core job functions and reference content. What are my policies, procedures? What's my apps? What's my benefits? Historically, that's done through a SharePoint intranet. Okay. But guess what? Surprise. We're seeing organizations leverage and use that inside Microsoft Teams. Interesting. You're going to decide, is that going to be for you or not? We'll talk about this. Okay, next is company culture, right? So we're talking about like all of your enrichment programs, Walking Wednesday, newsletters, stuff that's what I call optional content that makes your organization its identity, right? I always say it's the paycheck that brings people in, but it's this intangible things. The culture is what makes people stay. Something untangible, the people, the work, the project, the way you guys do things, and how do you celebrate that? Okay, birthdays, announcements, anniversaries, project wins. You know, these are all the informational emails. Okay, where does that go? All right. So will that go in Teams, or will it go into a different workload like Yammer or even SharePoint? So that's pretty interesting. Next is like team collaboration, like you and your department, your kind of colleagues. Hey, will you do that? Then also we use Teams for file storage. Okay, what we're finding a lot is organizations go, great, love it, Teams, done, do it, bring it, push the button, got it, let's do that. Okay, awesome. So awesome, we got that. Then they're like, huh, could we get rid of these network shares? These things are just gold. Okay, and there's a lot of junk in there, and they're not very feature rich. Could we bring some of this stuff into Teams and different, Microsoft 365 workloads? The answer is, well, certainly. We're finding a lot of organizations are saying this as like, boom, phase one, let's get on the Teams platform. Phase two, kill off the network shares. Phase three, dance like it's going on, okay? So, because it's just less kind of IT debt for us to manage over time. So that's kind of one of the questions is file storage and taxonomy. I'll tackle this one head on. And then last is, hey, what do you want to do for apps and process automation? Now, each one of these, there's like, I have like when I talk governance with an organization, it's usually about 150 questions that I walk them through a series of a couple day kind of workshop. So we're giving you the high stuff, kind of the big items kind of talk about, but there's a gazillion other things inside here. So we're just giving you the, hey, like this is something you want to spend some time on. It'll pay off. Okay, so let's talk at the very bottom, core job functionalities. So what are we dealing with here? Okay, we're dealing with stuff where think of a new user, they want to know, hey, who are you? What do you do? What are your apps? What are our policies, procedures? How do I do my job, right? What are the tools I need to do my job? Okay, and traditionally this looks like, let me show you a little demo. Not that one, this one, here we go. This is a demo intranet, okay? Nothing glamorous. This is using SharePoint Online out of the box, and this was built from an automated template, right? And you could do the same thing, okay? And I've been in the intranet space for a really long time, and we used to spend a lot of money and energy making these look nice, adding features, customizing these. That pattern is gone. It seems as though we want to just like get the most simplest version of our intranet and check the box. And I think of it as a good metaphor is like the tiny house community. You know, like you have a house, then you have these tiny houses that are kind of very quick and easy to stand up. Intranets are becoming very, very stripped down. Give me the core functionality, reference stuff. It just needs to be true and up to date. True and up to date. And Microsoft's kind of taken a lot of this stuff and made it really nice for us. So if you look at here, who we are, okay, company facts, people, our values, what's happening, events, and then the find it here. I mean, these are just generic, okay, but careers and benefits, policies, help desk. Yeah, people don't live here. They come here when they know they need to find something, right? They live inside email and Teams where they do their work every day, but they come here to when they need a reference and get truth. This is the latest template. This is our PowerPoint presentation. This is our branding. This is curated. It's been reviewed and published, and we have a high amount of confidence in the content that we have here. So those are some of the motivations and kind of the cultural kind of nuances we're seeing when it comes to your intranet. So now this stuff is cool, all right, but it doesn't have to live in SharePoint, right? Could it go in Teams? The answer is yes, one of two ways. Okay, the first way is that you can take this intranet, I got a slide for you, and we have a new app so it can be presented inside Teams itself as one of the side panels. That's awesome. And also, as content is created on the intranet, it actually gets like a little red ping inside Teams, so it now has this very clean integration between those two things. That's really powerful, folks. Especially if you have a legacy SharePoint investment, you want to now modernize it and then bring that sucker to Teams. And it really solves what I call the problem of proximity. Intranets usually traditionally die when people say, it's going to be this place of collaboration. No. That is very hopeful. That is very optimistic. It'll live as a reference tool, okay? But we want to make that as easy to get to as possible. And if it's hard to get to, people won't use it, plain and simple. Think of it like a cabin that's 5 hours away versus an hour away. How many weekends a year are you going to get to it? Not as many if it's 5, right? It just won't see as much use. So same thing. So home sites is one of the cool things that can be done inside Teams. The other thing you've done is you don't use SharePoint at all. You create a team called an org-wide team. Okay, an org-wide team means that all users are automatically added to it, but then you kind of dumb it down. You kind of spice it up a little bit, and all the same features that I mentioned for using an intranet. Here we go. Here's my demo. Here is my Contoso team, but it's org-wide. It means everyone's a part of it. You create channels for the major workloads: general, announcements, benefits, policies, procedures, who we are. You go to town, let me pull up announcements. Shows you have corporate news and announcements. Guess where you put them? Here. Okay? And now you've really solved the problem of proximity. This is the intranet. It's built in, it's baked right in with you. It's fantastic, okay? And you can have certain messages that go there, and you can go to town. And notice here, if I go into the settings of this, if you are going to use an org-wide team, some of the best practices, if you go into the settings, you really want to disable the members' capabilities. So here's my members. I don't want them to create channels, okay? Delete channels, start meetings inside this org-wide channel. Now it's the whole company. So there's this like reply all, it affects more people than they know kind of a thing. And then also like guests. And I also might even disable the goofy fun things here so that it keeps more along the lines on a business track. Though the fun stuff can be enabled in the other teams that are out there. That's kind of cool, right? This also may be, so that's one example, guys. So what could you have all this reference material. Are you going to use a traditional intranet? Are you going to maybe think about using an org-wide team, okay? Or is it an intranet that you're going to bring in and bring close? And we work with a partner called Valo. They have a product that even brings the intranet into Teams like on steroids. It goes even further than what Microsoft has done, and we've had a lot of fun implementing that for a couple clients. So that's my first kind of stop here is your org-wide. Okay, for core job functions, will Teams be used? All right, the next is company culture. All right, so but let's talk about kind of the Microsoft, what they've been doing with things. So here they've really been going against, I don't know if they're going against, but there's this theory of the multi-purpose tool. Okay, so like a multi-purpose tool here, the metaphor is a Swiss Army knife. It's got lots of things in it. It's ubiquitous. It's used for lots of things. If we're in a plane and we crash in the wilderness, somebody's got one of these things, man, we're really thankful. Okay, it's fantastic in survival kind of scenarios when you're trying to move fast and light. However, if we're in your kitchen, okay, and we're making dinner together and we need to slice up some meat, no one's going to whip out a Swiss Army knife. Okay, it's just because in a kitchen where you have a much more mature space, you have a designated space for cooking, you have storage that's pretty defined and has a taxonomy, dishes, bowls, cups, knives, it's organized. That's when you begin to see speciality. And then you'll have a particular knife for cutting meat, one for chopping bread or whatever. And so it's this idea of a multi-purpose tool is really kind of, it's not very popular. It's not very popular. Even like I have a fireplace. I needed to buy an axe to chop wood. There's even specialty axes. Did you know that? I didn't know this. The one on the right is for chopping. The other one is for like taking round logs and making them square, but it's horrible for splitting wood. I had no idea. So one of the tools we've used to help define, okay, well, which tool should we use for which, is we looked at a couple different factors. There's a lot of preference involved. But one of the preferences is how are you communicating, like communication tone. If the message is formal, it takes a lot more time. That's what that graph is. Formal messages take more time to create than informal messages. Okay, so for example, if I need to make a organizational announcement that says, hey, we're now purchasing the land across the street, we're going to be tearing down the building and building a new manufacturing facility, it's going to be this, see the progress, we're going to be hiring 60 new jobs over the next 2 years. That message will take a long time to craft. And I'll write it, it'll go through editorial review, it'll go through approval of the executive and the board committee, boom, boom, boom. It's got a lot of layers to it, okay? Comparatively to like something that would be semi-formal is, hey, I just want to let everybody know our project closed under budget and on time. Hey, celebrate our win. Still business enabled, but like it's not going to take as much time to write that. And then the informal would be like, hey, Julie, change Thursday's meeting to Friday. Much more formal in its tone, right? So if we think about this category, historically we've used Outlook, a universal multi-purpose tool for all types of communication, okay, for all three models. Okay, but Microsoft's been really leveraging, hey, kind of this thing, and this is kind of one of our recipes we've noticed, is that email and SharePoint has been really used for the formal stuff because you can put approvals around it. It's required to look at. You can see it. Fantastic. Teams, we've got this chat component. It's really great for informal communications, chatting back and forth, fast, rapid kind of communication. Okay, we're trying to, replicate what we see in a human conversation, virtually on written paper kind of a scenario. And we found Yammer fits really good for the non-actionable, just informational type of messages. Here's what our menu, here's what our newsletter is, here's what's happening, we're going to do company culture stuff, and instead of moving it out of email, putting it into Yammer, alleviates, there's less email people are getting, and people, since it is optional, people can go and engage with it if they want to. So there's this idea, this is just one of the recipes we found a ton of success with different clients. So this is this idea of very specialized tools. So now it gets into, what are you going to use Teams for? Are you going to use Teams for company culture? Okay, will all that newsletter stuff, will that go into Teams? And is that how you want people consuming it? Do you want formal messages? See, these are not easily answered questions. They're not. And most of our organizations say no, they don't want that stuff in Teams, okay? And here's why. Visual clutter. It's visual clutter, okay? So by putting all of those other types of formal and semi-formal communications inside Teams, okay? Teams is where we get work done, and I'm working with my direct report manager okay? And my peers, and I have the task at hand is my focus. I'm in teams, that's what I'm working on, okay? And I can kind of anticipate messages will be about that stuff, okay? But if we now introduce these other components, now I'm gonna get these messages about here's what's in the menu for the month of March. Here is an organizational announcement, right? That doesn't affect my tasks at hand. They're nice to know and I need to look at them, okay? And now it'll kind of begin to clutter my Teams interface. And my Teams interface will become so loud, it'll be just like my email client, which is just overburdened, all different kinds of messages, and you never can guess what you're gonna get. But by having it very specialized, when I open up Teams, I know it's very work-centric, very task about basically what I'm gonna get, my performance review at the end of the year is gonna be all that content is gonna be all around it. So we've noticed that organizations, they've really lent themselves in that model, okay, of using Teams for that kind of stuff. And they want informational messages, formal communications someplace else, whether it's they keep it in email, they keep it in Yammer, they put it in SharePoint, they all decide something usually a little bit different, okay? But that's something for you to struggle with and kind of grapple with within your organization, okay? And so that's kind of been fun to see. And so company culture, will that go in Teams or not? That's kind of the big question. Next is what I call team collaboration, okay? So will you have a team, and like I mentioned before, Teams can be great for chat, meetings, and phone calls, okay? Fantastic stuff, awesome. Okay, but do you have a structure? Do you have a team for every department so they can collaborate with their peers? Okay, with all the marketing people can get together, all the HR people can get together, boom, 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 they can do that. And if you start going down this road, then it answers this all additional questions on top of that. What's your provisioning model? Like, can anyone create a team? Okay, do you want to slap naming conventions on these things? Do I have an auto expiration? Okay, if it's not being used, will Teams just go away after a period of time? Okay, can you use Teams for things that don't represent an functional area of the organization, like for a project? Okay, or cross-functionals? Those are all, whoa. We didn't think of that. There's going to be so many questions around this. The answer is there sure is. So let me tackle just kind of a couple of these to kind of give you a flavor. So self-service, okay, not growing up, but having my kids raised, we used to love going to the beach because there was a lot of they could just self-play. Okay, they could kind of manage themselves. We could sit and watch them. My wife, I could sit and watch them, and they would just be entertained for a very long time. Okay, in other scenarios at home or at a park, I got to go play with them. I had to be very interactive. Okay, I have to do a lot of tasks. Think about I'm the administrator. I'm having to interact with what their play, right? And IT people were like, listen, I know tech stuff. You know the business. How about you do the business? I do the tech. Sound good? It sounds good. So there's a lot of tension around this idea of, should we just allow the business to create their own teams? Right? That makes sense to me. And I'm kind of, my opinion of the matter, my kind of position is enable self-service, let them create their own teams. Okay? But create some guidelines around it to help people know what they're doing. One of the things you can do for guidelines is, okay, we have teams that'll probably be very static, one for every kind of functional area, like departments and that kind of thing. But then you might have teams that need to get provisioned for every project. Project 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. The ones on the left, they're not going to change very much. And usually the admin, you might just create a team for every department or functional unit or division, and they have a certain naming convention. But then maybe there's a naming convention for ones that are generated by users. So you now have these ones are the static ones, these are the dynamic ones. So if people start looking them up, they search for them, oh, this little naming convention, suffix or prefix put the end of them, gives it away what type of team is it, okay? This also helps us from an administrative standpoint. We know which ones are very kind of the official ones and which ones are not. And that's one of the greatest fears about self-service is you have what this imposter syndrome, Expo 2020. Let's say we do a search, we find all of these teams, Expo 2020, Expo 20, E20, E20, 2020. Okay, will the real one please stand up, right? So how do we know? Now, from an IT standpoint, we're like, we don't know. It's your stuff. How do we know which is which? And so that's how a little naming convention can come into play and be a little helpful. If it was user generated, it gets this naming convention. If it was by request, it used the admins, they get it this way. So that's one of the things to consider. One other thing we've also had to get into was, hey, is it true that people are going to be looking for teams? Do they have to actually go search and discover, look for a team? And a lot of times the answer is no, they don't. Here's what I mean by that. If I'm a member of accounting, okay, the number of teams that I'm in is probably very static. I'm probably in an accounting team, and I might be a part of like 3 other projects. I would say a member of a cross-functional team. So let's say a total of 5. It's rare that a user will then go, hey, I don't have enough to do. I'm going to search for another team to go get more work. Right? That's not very common, right? That's not a common use case. So their need to have these organized and with naming conventions. No, usually if you need to be part of the team, someone just add you. Okay, oh, you're welcome to the project. I'm going to add you in. And they invite you, they add you in. It's more of a pull than you going discovering. So I noticed that that's not very common, but it's oftentimes a big fear of IT folks and organizations. I don't think that's very true, is my opinion. Okay. Now, and for our case, Red Level, we use teams for like our client database. We have a team for every client, and every channel is every project we've done with them. So we have this history list of all the information and categorization and stuff that goes inside of it. So there is a lot of discovery. So we have a very formal naming convention when it comes to this stuff. So you have to kind of prove it, you have to have some justification. That's a good case. Okay, naming conventions can be prefixes or suffixes. Okay, all right. And my best practice or best advice is keep your naming convention short, like Danny DeVito. Okay. Other things to consider when it comes to kind of like this collaboration stuff is you can also have like inactivity expirations. So after a period of time, okay, you can set an expiration policy. If the content in that team has not been touched or used or read, then after 60 days, 90 days, a year and a half, in this case it's 2 years, then it goes through a decommissioning process. So teams can get cleaned up. So some of these features are kind of nice to help out in deciding how will we use teams for collaboration. Well, will we use it for self-service? Some of these features, they can help you define that. Okay, so let's move on. What else could you use teams for besides just collaborating with projects and teammates? You can also use it for what I call document storage. Okay, behind every team is a SharePoint site. You may know this, you may not. Okay, and it's pretty cool that when you create a team, there's a SharePoint site that's behind it. So if you upload a document into Teams, that's where it's really stored. World-class document storage solution, SharePoint. Yeah, let's go. Whoop, whoop. Okay, so yeah, so SharePoint isn't as like a popular, like sexy kind of solution. Teams is it, but guess what? Guess who's empowering teams to do any kind of file storage? Yeah, you guessed it. Your friend and mine, Mr. SharePoint. So behind the scenes, it's using a SharePoint. And SharePoint's been really great as a document storage repository. And for the last 15 years, 20 years, since SharePoint's kind of been around, the projects have been, hey, can we get off legacy network storage and you get to a SharePoint platform? It's web enabled, it's feature rich, it does auto version control. We can link to documents, we can share them externally with users. It just allows us so much more. All right, so the answer is yeah. Now, I bring up the peanut butter cup here because the peanut butter cup is the best of 2 worlds. Chocolate, amazing. Peanut butter, I can't live without it. So it brings those 2 worlds together in an amazing thing. Microsoft Teams does something we've never seen before, okay? It brings file storage and communication and zips these things together, okay? Historically, if I have a document I need to share with a team, I'm going to email it to them. Hey, what do you guys think of this document? What do you think of this new policy? Do you think this is good? And then we start this email threading back and forth. Yes, I like it. Can we change paragraph 3? No, let's do this. Let's do that instead. And so now we have this huge conversation in email. All right, so then we make our final changes. We store the document in a network share. But the thing that we don't store with it is all the emails. They're lost forever. And the only thing that we have left is the record of the final document. And we lose all of that tension of the history that went into it. This is what we see new about Teams. And it seems like a subtle thing, but it's a big deal. And I got to remember where it is. Here it is, Mark 8, Research and Development. What you're able to do is have a document or a series of documents, and then you can see the history of people's conversations around it. It's now zippering chocolate and peanut butter together, communications and the file right together. And so for me, this becomes a huge motivator to move our document storage into a team-centric scenario. That's pretty awesome. So now, especially documents we're working and collaborating, study I just saw recently says that like people spend 80% of their week in some kind of collaboration. They're working together, building together. So why not we use great tools that help us do that? Drop a document in, people can chime in on it, they can edit it simultaneously. It's got co-authoring features built into it, and it goes to town. And if we go to the Files tab here, we can then have them properly organized in a traditional network shared kind of presentation, where we have folders, files, bang, 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 bang. And we're noticing a lot of our clients are starting to do that. They're like, we want to go to Teams, and can we get off this network share? Can you help us migrate? We're like, yeah. So lately, in the last, I don't know, 12 weeks, I've done 3 different migration projects. We're taking network share stuff, and we're moving them into Teams and organizing them. Where should this stuff go? Okay. And Teams is also really cool for that scenario because it's a great security boundary. Okay. So each team, the Mark A project, if I look here, manage team, this is going to tell me who has access, right? And in network share, you got to have like a degree in rocket science in IT. I don't understand that. This is very easy and very readable and very approachable for users. Okay. I think it's like those, I think of swimming pools. The best swimming pools are the 0 entry ones. You can just walk in a little bit. You can really control how wet you want to get. Okay. This is easy for users just like, oh, I can see. Okay. Okay. They dip their toe and they go a little bit deeper over time. Now, here you guys have it. So Teams is also, you have to decide what capacity of files are going to be stored here. Okay. And what does that look like? So we had an organization that says, hey, we want to use Teams for projects. We build conveyor systems, massive, huge projects. Okay, awesome, go for it. Okay, so a logistics company moving boxes and conveyors like an Amazon warehouse kind of a thing. And I was like, well, that's really cool. Okay, so these projects are really, really long. So they have all these documents going to the project. They have a schema they want to use, a folder structure. We work with them, kind of, here's what your channels and your folder structure is going to be. There's 3 different ways you can architect this. Okay, and they said, okay, now when the project's over, I go, what do you want to do? Do you want to move this stuff out of Teams, or do you want to keep them here? They're like, Okay, and they decided they wanted to keep them in Teams, and so we came up with a solution of them like kind of grouping projects together so they're searchable with SharePoint. Is this really, really fun stuff? Okay, but we've had other organizations say, no, I want to move that and archive it into this other system. So you just never know. You have to find out what's right for you. And that's what's really kind of challenging about a Teams implementation is this like, it's 5 variables. For us, it feels this way. For this, it's that. It's a lot of conversation, a lot of working together. So, hey, there you go, files taxonomy. Let's keep moving on. Hey, along the same lines is this idea of security, and I kind of mentioned it, is that most users have this need for 3 types of security. They have this content that's available for everyone. I think of it as like the front yard. You put a sign in the front yard, lemonade for sale. Who can see it? Everyone in the neighborhood, right? But then they also have this need for interior or for content that's for a smaller group of people, a membership inside the house, okay? And then they also have privatized information. The interesting thing is Microsoft gives us 3 distinctive tools that really kind of favor this. SharePoint is great for the all, or you could use an org-wide team. Microsoft Teams is really great for controlling a membership, and then OneDrive is like your bedroom. Okay, it's privatized, just your stuff. Kind of fun. All right, so that's file. That's really kind of my little kind of a metaphor there to help you remember about the taxonomy stuff. Okay, so next is the last item I have in the roadmap for governance is like, okay, what do we do for custom applications and bots? Okay, so is Teams going to be a platform that you're going to be putting custom apps inside? Okay, or will you be developing different bots for people to use? So Microsoft is becoming, Teams is becoming more and more kind of the delivery platform for users to do some kind of custom kind of app development. And one of the fun things we kind of discovered that Microsoft recently released here was what's called Power Virtual Agents. It's basically a bot platform where you can create an interactive kind of chat with a user, and it does tasks behind the scenes. So This is a little help desk bot I threw up together in about an hour, okay? Took me about an hour to figure out how to do this guy. And let me show you how it works. So here's my traditional Teams kind of interface. Boom, chat, Teams, all the way down the line. And we have an app here, the help desk ticketing bot. And I'm going to pin it. So these apps can get deployed. So they're right here on the side panel. Okay, so traditionally how the help desk tickets work, they put a ticket in, they send an email, we generate a log, we get a database, we do some kind of action, we talk to the user, we fix their thing, and we say, awesome, you're amazing, we're amazing, and we go town. So, but let's say we wanted to make it a little more self-service. Okay, so then we go to the chatbot and say, hi. Let's see if it works. Should work just fine. Hi, I'm the virtual agent. I can help you with anything you want. Okay, what can I help you with? I need to get MS Visio installed on my PC. Let's see what he says here. So great. Maybe not our best question here, but this is pretty good. What kind of question is that? I don't even sure what Visio is. It sounds like could be one of these things. But, well, that's definitely software. So then let's see, he's going to say, okay, please tell me some details. Visio is needed for diagrams and required for my next project. I'm typing as fast as I can. Awesome. I threw it on there. He's going to ask me another question. Says, hey, what's your name? Hey, I'm Ryan Charnock. Boom. Going to ask me another question here. Hey, you wanted me to create a ticket for you? Because sometimes we might be able to like answer their questions right off of like a help document, give them static information. Okay, so you have this whole library of, it's so cool, of things you can kind of like content, like a wiki, you can kind of like feed people about the FAQs of questions. Create a ticket? Yeah, well, yeah, go ahead and make a ticket. That'd be great. And it went ahead and created ticket number 70 and gave me a link to it. Does that answer my question? I'm going to click this link. Let's have a look at the ticket. So the ticketing system is just a custom list inside a SharePoint site. So we're going to see now that it took the answers that I gave it, and then it's going to log those into the appropriate data points into this help desk ticketing system. So I love this that it says it was a bot ticket. It was created from the bot. So now we get a chance to start looking at metrics. Are these user generated, bot generated? We know where our tickets are coming from. Are people using this stuff? Yeah, so Visio needed for diagrams, date, boop, boop, boop. Looks like the date's off there. It's a software priority, and we're going to town. So the question that you got to answer is now, whoa. Will we use this stuff? Will we use the Power Platform? That's Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents, okay, and Power BI to use Teams as the platform for delivering insights, data, and automations. Question, great questions. You know the answers. I don't. Okay. So that is what I call, hey, what do you want to use Teams for? That's the governance stuff. Okay. So if we go back up, we're talking about this process here. Okay. So technical requirements, define your governance. Okay. We talked about enabling teams, but now we're getting our last little metric here, which is change management. Now that you've decided this is how we're going to use it, now you got to inform the users of this change. Okay. And you have to trick them or game them into seeing it your way. Huh. What could possibly go wrong? Everything could go wrong. So here's how the list of things you need to do for change management. Okay, you have up like a communication plan. Hey, here's what we're going to tell people. You want to communicate often and early. Listen, we're going off Skype. We're going to be using Teams. Okay, you could develop what's called a champions program, where you find folks that say that are interested in technology, and you give them some early bird training, and turn them into early adopters, and they give you feedback from an IT perspective. They're giving you feedback from the field. Okay. Troops are on the move. They love this. They hate this. They're kind of giving that insight feedback on kind of their wish list. Okay, you have to decide on what you're going to do for training. okay? And is it going to be lunch and learn style? Will it be hands-on instructor-led training? Will it be on demand, just watch as you go, okay? And also, will there be a migration, right? Will IT move content for them, and will there be a mapping, right? And also, for this is one of my biggest items is, how do you know what success is? Have you defined the finish line? Success is when we have, Skype is turned off, is usually the first one, okay? Next is, well, we have this much utilization of Teams. We have this much utilization here. We use this, we see that, we have this something. Maybe it's a survey that you create on an annual basis that says, hey, this is the employee engagement, and we're using new technologies, right? And also, are you going to be installing Microsoft Learning Pathways, which is free online help that's installed into your tenant when Microsoft updates the help content, okay? So all of these are great ideas for change management. Now, if you're not, historically, IT folks, we go, that's someone else's problem. Look, I flip the switches, it works, okay? We pawn this off on someone's problem, but the problem that actually is our problem is that if we don't find folks to do the change management for us, then people don't adopt the technology, they don't use it, and it becomes a failure. And we have to then, our work that we did, it becomes meaningless, right? So the story I like to tell is years ago when my kids were little, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Okay, we lived in a small house, 1,000 square feet, in the middle of a recession kind of a thing. We had a really small backyard. Okay, and so we really wanted our kids to, and at the time we loved playgrounds. We played on playgrounds. That's the age, the golden age of playgrounds for kids. So my wife and I were like, hey, let's build a playground in our backyard. Yeah, it'd be awesome. So that was kind of like our summer projects. My wife and I, she's a builder, for real, like a carpenter kind of person, does renovates homes, that kind of stuff. And I'm just the nerd. Okay, so she designed this thing. I helped. And it had a swing set, had an elevated like castle with a building on the top of it, had like a sky plank and a monkey bars and a climbing wall, sandbox below it. The thing was huge. Okay, it's like 35 feet long, and we won some kind of competition for it. It's awesome. Spent the whole half the summer building this thing. So we revealed it to the kids. We're like, hey, go play. It's gonna be amazing. And my wife and I kind of had this moment envisioned in our heads. We're like, just sit back in lawn chairs and just revel in our children's self-playing, right? Well, in 5 minutes, they came back and said, hey, can we go inside and watch a movie? We're bored. We almost lost our complete junk right on our children right there. I was like, okay. It's user adoption. This is user adoption problem. This is not a problem with our play set, okay? They just don't know what to do with these really cool things. They just don't know. They just don't know. Okay, I was like, honey, just wait, I got this. So I took like the next couple of minutes, I invented a game. Okay, you got to get from one of the platform of the playset to the other, okay, without touching the ground. Swings and things, and monkey bars and all this stuff. And then we made kind of like a circuit, and then they started racing, right? It took me about 10 minutes to kind of show them and give an idea. And then they just caught on. They caught on like, oh, I see. And then they played that game. And then guess what? They invented another game. And then they invented another game and another game. And they just kind of began to flywheel, kind of spiral this momentum. And we're able to kind of have that moment of sit back and watch our kids play. Technology is no different. They are brand new, cool toys. And as IT folks, we get it quickly because that's where we live every day. Okay? But as humans, we're not wired that way. We're wired, our brain is lazy. It takes the shortest path of certainty. Whenever given a choice, learn something new or do the thing that will get it done faster with assurances. You'll do that. You will every single time because our brains are they're conservative on their energy. So most users need help, okay? Information is everywhere. The internet is full. Even days today, like there's no lack of resources, but there's so many people that just don't know stuff. Was it because they don't have access? No, it's because we're not incentivized. We're not motivated to learn the stuff. And usually people are motivated when other people are involved. And so I'm a huge fan. I'm kind of biased. I come from a training background. I'm a huge fan of United Training, of instructor-led. Even like think about this webinar. Could you have read all this stuff on your own? Yeah, probably. okay? But the fact that a human was presenting it in a consumable way makes it more interesting, right? And so I think that if this is some of the biggest changes organizations are going to see technology probably in the next 10 years, right here. This is what we're experiencing right now, okay? We're moving files. We're changing how people communicate in a chat-based tool. Man, we're moving the cheese. People are just, it is changes on the move here. And so we want to do whatever we can to help them out and get the maximization of our investment. And so this stuff, the change management, we have a whole practice of folks that kind of walk through organizational assessments. Are you ready for change? Can you handle it? No, we're a really conservative organization. Okay, then let's take it slow, okay? And change is like water to the ground. It can only absorb so much at a particular rate before it just bounces off, okay? And so you have to keep that in mind along the way. So change management, these are your ideas there. Okay, so then let me bring this in for kind of a landing. So if you're thinking about, hey, what do I need to do to get from Skype? You have, if I go back to my first slide, that was this guy here. You got to do your technical requirements. You're going to have to go through the process of enabling it, get some governance, and the change management. I think the green and the blue box are the hardest, okay? So you can do the technical requirements and stuff. You can do that stuff really fast. Awesome. And there's lots of documentation to do it. But what the heck are we going to use this thing for? Okay, that's super important. Okay, and so if you think about, okay, how do I get on this? What are my next steps? I'd say take some classes with United Training. Okay, they're going to have a whole series of classes on Microsoft Teams administration, the end user side of things. They're fantastic. You can engage with our firm, Red Level. You can get a hold of me. I'll put my email back up and get us in contact with the right people. We do implementations. A lot of times you just don't have time. Like, dude, I don't have the time to do this. Can you do this for me? Yes, we do that all the time. Can you help lead and facilitate governance? Yes, we do that, obviously. Can you run some change management and provide the oversight or the training, however that's going to need? The answer is yeah. And do we do custom development? The answer is sure. So our firm is pretty wide and vast in what it does. So that's what I would say would be the next steps. And so I'll kind of wrap it up by just saying, hey, thanks so much for joining me today. So glad you could join me, and good luck to you on your Skype journey and getting into Teams. Hopefully you found this very impactful and pointed, okay, and a good use of your time. So we look forward to engaging with you in the future. So I think I'll open it up to questions at this point. So Megan or Christy, help me out if there's any questions that come in. We'll take them.
Sure. One quick question that came in. What are most organizations doing when it comes to allowing their users to create teams?
Yeah, it's a big divided poll, okay? Some organizations, they don't allow their users to do it at all because they want to maintain rigid control, and then organizations are much more free. I think it's an older mindset of like, it's IT control, we have to manage this, and they lock it down, but much more progressive thinking organizations like, dude, just enable it, let it go. But there are some practices like the auto expiration helps clean up the abandoned teams over time, and also having a very simple naming convention, like these teams represent functional areas of your organization, and these are the ones that user generated. And the ones that user generated, I don't care. But the ones that represent kind of like the functional org, they matter a lot.
Okay. Next up, does Teams have live broadcasts?
Yeah, it does. So Skype has a great feature of a live broadcast, and Teams has a very compatible feature of doing live broadcast also. So, and it's something you set up, and there's no chat, there's not a back and forth chat, but people can comment as it's going on. So they're great for like large town hall meetings.
What are the Teams voice options like?
Yeah, team voice options they're really growing. So at first they were just basic, you port over phone numbers in your phone, then Teams has a area and you have a number pad and you go to town. And there's now a lot of features that are going into it where we're actually using Teams, and we have a client that's looking at Teams using it for like a call center. So you can have call routing, you can have logic that, if it goes If this call comes in, an automated attendant +3, it gets rid of these people or that people. So it's really coming around. And I think it's going to be probably a big competitor for Cisco and the other phone systems that are out there.
That looks like all of the questions that we have for today. I'd like to say a quick thank you to you, Ryan, and to United Training for having us today. Hope everybody has a great day, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you around.
Thanks. Bye, guys.